Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book from Edward Elgar Publishing Limited. They are an excellent publisher of very high level quality academic and scholastic works. Quite a few of them, of course, are from originally derived from theses. Now, this particular one is very important because of globalization. I'm going to be a bit general with some aspects of this review because I don't want to be too specialized with it because of the value of the book to so many people. The title of the book is Regulatory Autonomy and International Trade in Services. Now, this covers the European Union under GATS and RTAs. Now, having said all of that, and what has been happening recently, is this book will be of interest to a lot of people. It's been edited and written by Breg Natans, there's his name there. It's also available as an e-book and electronically from Elgar Online, and I'll show you the details for that in a moment. Elizabeth and I talked about the book because we had some ideas of our own about where we might be going with the work. What I've given it as a title anyway for our review is a highly important statement for practitioners and scholars on regulatory autonomy and international trade in services. And I say that at a time when we are at a bit of a crossroads with a lot of things that are going on. Let's look at the book first of all. There is white cover. There's the front, then there's the spine. It was a thesis initially and then it's been developed from there. You see the basic information about Elgar at the bottom and various information about the author who comes from Brussels. There's some quotes as well. The book itself it's a hardback. Runs to about 340 odd pages, and you can see its page numbers from the index at the back. You've got, of course, a very substantial selected bibliography, which we would expect. You get concluding remarks right at the back of the bulk of the book, which is about 300 pages long. There's the front of it, and then he gives you the information about the online side, and the ebook and everything is there, and then you've got some basic information concerning the contents pages. You should be able to find what you're looking for very quickly here. Then there are in fact 8 specific chapters, and then what you have right at the end is the concluding remarks right at the end. It's only about 8 or 9 pages in total. Then you've got the bibliography and the index. Now there are some acknowledgments which the author has produced because it's based on his doctoral dissertation. Then he starts off right with the introduction, trade and regulatory autonomy. Very important at the moment with Brexit. We'll talk about that in a minute. Globalisation is a fact and one can see its effects particularly well in trade. From 70 years trade liberalisation, which can be defined for present purposes as a process in introducing greater market openness and a competitive market environment through legally binding obligations, has been a key element of foreign trade policy for almost all of the world's nations. Now, that having been said, we're talking about GATT and RTAs. Let me just say a couple of things before we go any further, and that is that when in June 2016 a decision was taken by the United Kingdom to leave the EU, it is a view of many people that that could well cause a tremendous amount of change in the way that we review and we work in terms of international trade. The new Prime Minister, Theresa May, has set up a new set of ministries, effectively, all linked to the Foreign Office, involving 3 people: Boris Johnson as Foreign Secretary, David Davis as the Brexit Minister and Secretary of State, and Liam Fox as the International Trade Secretary, to look at how the markets are going to develop in future, with Britain leaving the European Union when Article 50 is triggered. Now, that means that there will be quite a lot of change. However, at the moment, we want to look at where we are with the regulatory autonomy, in other words, the individual person's freedom, if you like, concerning international trade and the services that we offer. So, well, what do we actually say about the book? Well, I've looked at the back of it and I've tried to get some idea of, having seen the book and its worth to the very high scholastic levels of practitioner and academic intellect involved in this particular area, trying to work out whether it will have any longer term relevance. And I think it will. And there are some reasons, but let me develop that argument. What the author here, that's Breg Natans, has done is he says that in spite of its growing significance, the legal scrutiny of RTAs remains an underdeveloped academic field, and how right he is. This new title that we have here rightly describes itself as a work which considers how the interplay between multilateral and preferential liberalisation of trade in services increasingly raises concerns, both from the perspective of the beneficiaries of such liberalisation and that of the regulators. One of the reasons that some people have put forward as to why Britain is leaving the European Union has been over-regulation, over-interference, lack of transparency, lack of openness. So in other words, there hasn't been this level playing field. There hasn't been a two-way street. Now, that has been the view of quite a lot of people. I'm not necessarily going to say that I agree with that, because I was a Remain supporter. However, I do recognise that there are concerns, even with the liberalisation of the trade in services. Now, the question we've then got is, where are we going to be going from 2016 onwards? I'm recording this in actually early autumn now of 2016. We're back from our holidays and we're trying to get some idea of where we're going to be going in the next few months as Mrs May triggers Article 50. So we'll have to wait and see. However, what we've got here with Nathan's work is the application of a thorough article-by-article analysis where the author shows how the concerns that he's identified lead to the vast underutilisation of and often prejudice against the benefits of services liberalisation. Now, of course, to many people, liberalisation is in fact what we want, because we don't want to be constrained by too much red tape, to use that particular term. However, what the author does here, we think, with the book, is to meticulously analyse and compare the European Union's obligations under the GATS treaty and also the services chapters of several RTAs to finally assess the merits of the various concerns which have been identified. And that I think he does very well, because I don't think the subject matter is going to go away. Clearly we are in for a period of massive change and upheaval, and at the moment the bottom line on this, the criticisms that have been levelled at the government, are that no one was really prepared for what happened in June 2016 and the aftermath, and we're just going to start seeing that shortly. However, as I've said before, when you're looking at the regulatory controls that you have concerning international trade in services, we could well be having a new landscape on this. Let me conclude by saying then that the book itself is a title which we think will be an invaluable resource for students and scholars of law and its related subjects, including international trade in a much wider, perhaps commercial area, even though this is of a very high quality and a very high standard. I think it'll also be of interest to government officials looking for a detailed analysis of the topic itself, and to practitioners looking for a framework for analysing the RTA provisions, regulatory provisions. Now, the publication date is 2016. Let me just show you this again. There we go. There's the front of the book, there's the spine, and then there's the back. It's a light book. I think it's an important one. It is an invaluable resource at the moment. If you open it in the middle, it's been very well structured. You've got paragraph numbering, and you've got a lot of footnoting as well. It's exactly the style, the house style you would expect from Edward Elgar. The whole purpose of what we have here with the work that is being done, the World Trade Organization itself and all the individual areas that are involved, are set out very well. The introduction is well worth reading. It's quite a long introduction, but it's well worth reading to get an idea of where we are. Then when you go to the back, you can see the basic information covered in the index itself. Anyway, I'd like to thank Breg Natans very much indeed for the work he's done. It's going to be a difficult couple of years, let's face it, with the changes that we're now facing. And obviously one of the concerns that we in Britain must have, and I'm sure the rest of the world has, is whether there's any form of knock-on effect in terms of the way in which we actually trade in the future. I have to say I think there will be. Whether that will be affected, certainly in the short term I doubt it, but in the long term I would imagine it will. So this book is a worthy statement to read where we are at the moment and where we might possibly be going in the future. So thank you to everybody concerned. Again, I'd like to thank Elgar for producing these works. They're first class and they really do assist us with our tasks as legal advisors. So thank you to all concerned. Bye-bye.